So, how do you make sure that it's clear to your audience what they should be doing when you put them into a breakout room? That's the challenge that I have been working on lately and experimenting with a little bit. So, I'm going to tell you what I've been trying, and I'd love to hear what you've been doing because I've heard various options, and some of them are a little bit uh, I think a little better than others, let's just say that. And some of them came out of just the necessity of, oh my gosh, suddenly everybody was teaching virtually and they hadn't really done that before. And the participants hadn't really experienced breakout rooms in many cases before. So that was weird for them too. So here's what I came up with. I watched people. I love to see what other facilitators do and get ideas from them. And hopefully sometimes they get ideas from me as well. So what I started to see was they would say, okay, so I'm going to put you into breakout rooms in a minute, and I'm going to speak sort of, let's just say we're in Zoom for now. Obviously, different tools have some slightly different options that you could use in breakout rooms to make information available. But let's just, for right now, we're going to say we're in Zoom. So what happens is once you go into the Zoom, when you put the people into the breakout rooms, obviously they can't see the presenter's screen anymore. So I would see the presenter say something like, okay, before you go into the breakout rooms, get your phone and take a picture of this slide, or, screen capture this slide so that you have it when you're in the breakout room. Then I started to see people kind of went, oh, wait, that's not the best. Maybe I should give them a link, or I should, give them a file in the chat that they can download before they go into the breakout rooms. And any of these solutions can work. You have to kind of keep in mind that not everybody's going to do that. Not everybody's going to follow directions. They're not going to do the download. They're not going to whatever. Hopefully, is one person in the group did. But, it was still kind of a challenge, and it takes additional time, and it kind of gets you out of the flow of whatever you're talking about. So I wasn't really happy with any of the solutions. But I'm also a big fan, as you might have seen in the past, of MacGyvering my training. So what tools am I already using? How can I use them differently to solve this challenge? So what I noticed was I tended to do a lot of things like use polling apps. I particularly like Mentimeter. It's not the only one I've used. It's one I probably use the most often for a number of reasons that I'm happy to talk about separately. But let's just, again, for argument, for my example today, I was using Mentimeter to do some polls in a number of presentations. As an aside, one of the reasons I was using a third-party tool as opposed to using the polls in Zoom, for example, since I started this by saying, let's pretend we're in a Zoom session. Obviously, Zoom has a polling feature. A couple of reasons. One is it's not always being hosted by me. Sometimes I don't have as much control, or there's logistics or whatever, and I don't have the capacity to ensure that the polls get set up ahead of time, or any of that, because it's not in my environment. I'm presenting in someone else's home, and uh, so I like to have the third party as an option, because that way I can set up all of the assets I'm going to use in a presentation, and I can use it across wherever. And then I don't have to worry about what platform I'm in, or whether somebody else set the polls up for me or didn't, or what happened with that. So anyway, just that's the side story. Is that's one of the reasons that I'm using a separate product aside from any polling feature that would already be available in your conferencing software, which I'm not saying you should not do that. But here's the advantage. So when you use something like Mentimeter, first of all, it gives me the opportunity to put the phone in the user's hand. So I now have removed one of the distractions, because let's be honest, especially with virtual events, people are still, they're multitasking, or they are doing what they call multitasking, and they're picking up their phone and they're checking their messages and all those sorts of things. So now I've given them a reason to touch their phone at something that's still focused on what we're talking about. And so they're participating, hopefully, in the polls. So the polls I generally space out in my presentation. I don't always do them as one chunk, like right at the beginning or something like that. So it's something that they're going to need to come back to throughout the presentation anyway. But what I figured out was that I could put the instructions to the breakout activities on a slide in Mentimeter. And then when I put them into the breakout sessions, all I have to do is advance to that slide on my screen. I don't even have to be sharing my screen. And I usually am not when I do this. I just have to advance to that screen in my Mentimeter slide deck, and their phone will get the updated information. They may have to click refresh or something like that just to have it advance on their screen, but then the information is right there. So while they're in the breakout room, they can be accessing the information very easily. Again, everyone may not be participating in the polls, but there's a much better chance that at least one person, it's right there, and they can then talk with the others. It also eliminates the need for people to go into the breakout room and immediately one of them share their screen to show everybody else, if there was a file that was downloaded or something like that. So again, it's something I've been experimenting with. I've used it a couple of different ways in a couple of different events. It seems to be working very well. It's gotten good reaction from the participants, partially maybe because it was just something a little different. They liked that. But a lot of people commented that they liked that it was right there. If they had the question right in front of them, or, especially I try not to give people multiple things to do while they're in one breakout session, but occasionally you might need to give them a couple of choices or things like that. And so it was a nice way to present the information and make it really accessible to them. And then when you come back out of the breakout room, I just advance to the next slide in the presentation and you're off and running again. So let me know if this sounds like something you'd like to try. If you do try it, let me know how it goes. If you've come up with a clever way to help the participants in the breakout rooms get the information they need so that they can work effectively in the breakout rooms, share that as well. I'm always looking for new tips so that I can use them and I can share them along to others, because I know there's a ton of you out there who have come up with really interesting, innovative ways to use the technologies, and not just always look for a new tool, but how can we use what we already have on hand in a different way to really make the best learning experiences possible. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you soon. Bye.